G'day, you beautiful Bomber fans. It is that time of the month. It is trade update time, and there is plenty to talk about. We've got news about Sam Draper. We've got senior players potentially wanting out, according to some. We've got updates on targets too. We have attention turned away from Bergman and Rowell after they've re-signed, and we've got others to focus on. There's been lots going on in the last few weeks, so this comes at a very good time. Let's talk trade news. Remember, this is all information that I'm gathering from those who know more than me. None of this is concrete facts. It is all speculation until confirmed, but that doesn't mean it isn't fun to talk about, so let's get right into it. Starting, as always, in these videos with Sam Draper. Until he signs on, he will be the biggest talking point in relation to the Bombers and their trade plans. Everything kind of revolves around him a little bit, and I'll talk about that more at the end of the video with the Ruck Merry-Go-Round, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, Essendon want to keep him. They've upped their offer in recent weeks. They've offered him slightly more money, but on less years, and still less cash than Brisbane and Adelaide, it is believed. And Draper is torn about what he wants to do. Cal Toomey's been big on this for a while. He says that Draper wants to stay. In an ideal world, Draper is staying put, but he is being offered more money, more security, just more in general by other clubs. And with Sam Edwin reporting that the Bombers are hesitant to enter a bidding war with these other clubs, it may well mean that Draper is given an offer that is too good to refuse by one of these interstate teams. And pair the extra money with the mounting injury troubles at Essendon and the history with Joe Danaher, who got his body right at Brisbane after failing to do so at the hangar, there is every chance that Draper is in different colours next year. But also, there is every chance he stays. The Bombers won't be bending over backwards to keep him. They are offering him a contract, but the extra pick in this year's draft would be a fair point of compensation for a ruck who's missed plenty of football over the years. It is a 50-50 with Draper. No one really seems to lean one way or the other. He might stay, he might leave, and if he was to leave as an unrestricted free agent, the next 50-50 is whether or not he lands the Bombers Band 1 or Band 2 compensation. The Dons upping their offer to the Ruckman would potentially have rival clubs doing the same, starting the bidding war that Edmund talked about with the Crows and the Lions. The word now is that it probably is on the verge of Band 1 and 2, giving us, another top 5 pick potentially, but also, if it's not, it would be a pick at the end of the first round, which in this year's draft could be closer to pick 30. Really interesting situation here. There are two big 50-50s to come out of it. Plenty left to unfold. I'm sure this time next month we will have more news, but we'll probably be no closer to understanding what his final decision may be. At this stage, it is a genuine 50-50. It's tough to know what Draper's going to do. Kyle Langford. So this is a debut appearance on the trade update videos. Just a few days ago, Mitch Cleary said that senior players at Essendon were losing faith with the high performance program at the club, given the continuous injury worries. He said that Langford in particular was a player who would look twice at an offer that came his way. Langford has managed just 6 games this season, has 6 games, 3 soft tissue injuries. It comes after back-to-back full seasons in 2023 and 2024. It looked as if he had put his past injury issues behind him, but the 28-year-old has really struggled this year for form and with his body. And there may be clubs looking for that extra bit of power in the forward line. He's a proven goal kicker. Clubs could promise Langford more consistent game time and less injury issues with his body, I'm sure. This is a bit of a watch. I doubt the Bombers think too much about letting him go given our lack of leadership at the club, but I think this all kind of revolves around the club's investigation into the high performance team and whether or not changes are made. Some players would be fine and happy with the way things are tracking, but Langford is one who has had a long history with soft tissue injuries at Essendon. I wouldn't begrudge him to think about life elsewhere. It's just tough to see how a trade could really benefit the Bombers given his age and form. I doubt a high pick really comes our way if a trade was to eventuate. Darcy Parish. Now here's another one thrown into the mix here. He had that incredible 2021 season, but since then hasn't managed a full year without injury problems. He got back onto the park after an interrupted 2025 preseason, but he has since suffered another setback, putting him back in the rehab group that he is so familiar with. He hasn't really been named specifically too much, Parish, with trade news this year, but reading between the lines, you can tell that Cleary and his Essendon senior player news clearly involves Darcy, and pair that with Tom Morris and Cal Toomey chatting about him on radio recently, and you can kind of see a little bit of smoke forming. With Parish, he's always really liked Essendon. He signed on with the club despite rival interest a few times, and even when he left his decision late in the year, he was apparently always really happy to stay and loyal to the club. But there have always been little links. Geelong in particular is a club I've seen talked about with Parish a lot in the years, but with a contracted player on good money who isn't really getting game time, he's not playing amazing footy, it's honestly hard to see how clubs really come hard for him over other options. I think right now Parish is just more likely to stay at Essendon because of the lack of rival interest. If Harley Reid, Butters, Warple, all these high-profile mids, if they all signal their interest to stay at their respective clubs, maybe another team turns their attention to Parish as a backup, who at his best is an all-Australian player. I just don't think he gets to that level again, and he's on, I can see a world where a club tries to get the most out of him. I just think it would have to take a bit of a pay cut for that move to get done, which for a man who's recently become a father, it just seems hard to get through to him as to why a move could really benefit him if he's on less money. And for other clubs, would you really want to be spending the same money that Essendon are currently spending on Parish? Everyone will say, trade Parish. It's easy to say that. But for Darcy himself, it just doesn't seem like a logical move if he's taking a bit of a pay cut, which he probably will have to do if he is leaving the club. I can't see how rival interest would be big enough to force him out. Elijah Tsatas. So I'm going to start here by saying I'm recording this video on Wednesday, the 9th of June. I'll be probably releasing it on the Friday, I guess. I haven't seen the team selection for the Richmond game yet. If Tsatas is not in that team, he has to be on the phone to his manager and telling him to find a new home, because he wants to be playing footy, and he deserves to be playing footy, I think. He's a pick 5, playing really well in the resis. He's got his issues, but he'd be playing footy at another team. He just cannot squeeze into that Essendon engine room. Now, a recent Herald Sun report suggested that the Bombers do want to keep Tsatas to his current contract, which runs out next year at the end of 2026. But if he isn't getting game time to round out this year in an injury-riddled team, there is 100% the possibility of his management trying to force a trade and get him opportunities elsewhere. And the good news is, despite him not really playing much footy in his career, he still has value to his name given his recent draft status. It wouldn't be a high first rounder or anything, but a second rounder could be enough to make this happen. The Bombers do want to persist with Tsatas. It is just tough to fit him in the midfield, and he'll be thinking that he deserves to be in there. This one could really catch fire if he isn't able to break into that engine room to close out the year. There have been 11 debutants this year, 40 different players, and young Tsatas has played 4 AFL games at the time of recording, and one of those games he was the sub. So he is 100% thinking about what life could look like elsewhere, and he is definitely getting rival attention too. Zak Merrett, this one is more opinion rather than news, but I'd be silly not to talk about it given the screen time it got. So Sam McClure and Matthew Lloyd were talking about our captain on one of the 3 billion footy TV shows. Lloyd actually led the charge here and suggested that Merrett could look for success elsewhere, and saying that he and the footy world wouldn't begrudge Merrett for seeking a flag, or actually what he said was a finals win at another club. A few things here. Merrett's been pretty big on sticking with the Bombers. He was offered much more money at St Kilda last year and shrugged it off. I doubt his feelings have changed much this year, given he would have known that the club's direction going forward was, about the future. And 2, yes, Merrett hasn't won a final, but I don't think he really cares about winning finals. I think he would care more about winning grand finals. I don't think Merrett would end his career in envy of Paddy Cripps and James Sicily and Toby Green, guys that have won finals, but, not grand finals. I think he'd be envious of Dangerfield and Moore and the guys who have actually tasted the ultimate success. I get the narrative around the lack of finals success for the Bombers. Would this story change if the Bombers had won a final in 2021 or 2019 when we had made finals? I get that you have to win finals to win the grand final, but I'd be really disappointed if our captain and club were content with just reaching, the second week in finals. That's not the be-all and end-all. Merrett doesn't want to win finals. He wants to win grand finals, and I could be wrong here, but everything he's said and done in the past suggests that he would rather stick fat with Essendon and try to do it with the club here, rather than trade elsewhere to try and win a grand final at another team. I don't think there's much to talk about with this. I think that Lloyd and McClure just wanted some screen time, and to be fair, they got it. All right, on to potential incoming players. We're going to talk about Zak Butters one last time, only to rule them out. I see plenty of comments and plenty of news stories about Butters, trading for him, other clubs, Victorian clubs. It seems really unlikely that Port let him go. I just don't think he's going to be on the move in 2025. If we hear anything different in the coming weeks and months, I'll chuck him back in these videos. But I think for now, it is safe to say that Zak Butters will be sticking put in South Australia. Next year he's a free agent. I'm sure he'll be talked about a lot in 2026. But for now, I think this is probably the last time we talk about him for the year. Everybody just seems to say he is staying put. And those who are a bit more skeptical at least say that a trade would be really tough to negotiate. I don't think this one's going to happen. Harley Reid, this one is definitely live. West Coast will have to seriously think about how they manage this situation. At the moment, they have put flexible contract offers on the table for Reid to sign if he wants, but Reid is yet to put pen to paper. As it stands, he runs out of contract next year. A trade would have to be agreed upon for him to move this year, and there are plenty of Victorian clubs who are willing to part with big draft capital to get a trade done. There are a few questions here, though. One, does Harley Reid want to go to Essendon or want to move? That is the first question. There are definitely links to Essendon. He's played, he's got mates here. He's close with Caddy. He's dating Xavier Dersmer's sister. He's trained at the club. He's played VFL footy with us. He's familiar with the Bombers. And if he wants to join the Dons over other Victorian clubs and over West Coast, the next question is, will the Eagles be willing to trade him? Or better yet, what will we have to offer the Eagles to get a deal done? I would say 2 first-round picks is the minimum. It would probably be more. Would the Bombers be able to get a trade done for Reid if he wanted to move? And given there are questions that are, tough to really be answered at this stage, a few questions, Reid may decide that the easier thing to do would be to stay where he is right now and avoid the media scrutiny that comes with a trade request. It does seem like this saga is leaning towards Reid staying put at the Eagles for 2025 just because it is so difficult to get a move done. That doesn't mean he will stay. Until this is finalised, it is a real chance for the Bombers and other Victorian clubs. Hawthorn are keen, they don't have the capital. Geelong are in the same boat. The Saints could be getting the capital with a Wanganeen Miller trade, but would Reid want to play there? Richmond's another option too. So yeah, it is definitely a chance. I've been told personally by some pretty credible sources that the Bombers are a real chance if Reid was to look elsewhere, but it just looks like it would be really difficult to get done. If I had to guess, I would say that Reid stays put for next season, but who knows? Brandon Starcevich, he is one of the few remaining restricted free agents right now. He is seriously weighing up his future at Brisbane. Cal Toomey came out and said that he is having a proper, long, hard think about whether he wants to play elsewhere. Really, most of this year for Starcevich has been centred around getting on the park. The defender has battled lingering concussion issues and has only just got back to playing AFL footy a few rounds ago. Now that he's playing though, now that he's back in the AFL side, he's started to think about his future and whether or not a move away from the Lions is the best option. Essendon have signalled their interest to Starcevich. He knows the club is keen. North as well have done the same. WA clubs, because he is originally from Perth. Really, this one is flying under the radar given all the other trade news circling about, but it is 100% live. Starcevich is a free agent. He's making the move centered more around money that he earns. Will Essendon offer more than Brisbane? Will North offer more than Essendon? The Bombers have salary cap space and have gone really hard on front-ended deals while there is that salary cap space. It may well happen. It's going to be talked about a lot more as he continues to remain unsigned. If you're unsigned by round 20 as a restricted free agent, it means anything could happen. I think this is a massive watch. Is it the right move? You could argue either way. It's always been a bit easier to justify free agents being on your list given, the lack of trade and capital required. It's just about whether or not it's worth the list spot for someone who's battled concussion issues a bit in his career. We'll see how this one unfolds. Another one that has kind of flown under the radar since it was brought to our attention on Gettable a few months ago, Liam Ryan. So the Bombers are genuinely keen on the prospect of bringing Ryan over to the hangar. There has been interest in the past, and with Matt Rose's ties to WA, there is a feeling that Ryan's name is on the whiteboard down at the hangar. Ryan is currently contracted. He's turning 30 sooner than most of the players on our list, so he doesn't really fit the list build necessarily. It's also tough to know what would get a trade done and what would be worth getting a trade done for a player that's 28, 29. But the Bombers are keen on Ryan, which is not good news for the out-of-contract smalls that we currently have on our list. But yeah, there's a bit to play out with this one too. And to end this video, let's just have a look at Essendon's off-season and what it is dictated by. Sam Draper. So if Draper stays put, things probably run out pretty smoothly. The Bombers keep their ruck and they can do what they want with the out-of-contract occupants at the club currently. A deal has been put in front of Draper and Nick Bryan, with Vigo also in future plans. There is more uncertainty with Blackiston and Goldie. The latter is keen to go on again if needed. And if Draper was to leave, join a new club, it not only opens the door for Goldie to go around again and Blackiston to go around again, it opens the door for a number of different things to happen. So there's already been talk of the Bombers potentially being a club that could be interested in Fremantle's Sean Darcy if Draper was to move. Riley O'Brien is a free agent who is putting talks on hold until after he knows what the Crows are doing with Draper. Rowan Marshall's name's been thrown into the Ruck Merry-Go-Round as well. I don't really think any of those three are proper, concrete, legitimate options right now. It is all just talk, but it shows you just how important Draper is to our off-season. A Draper compensation pick could be enough to seduce the Eagles into letting Harley Reid go, or if he stays, we might not have enough to get Reid. We might delist Goldie, Brian or Vigo might look at other clubs. There is a serious domino effect with Sam Draper this offseason, and until we know what he's doing, we won't know a lot about what happens with other rucks like Goldie, O'Brien, Nick Bryan, Sean Darcy potentially. The Ruck Merry-Go-Round is really being dictated by not only Tom de Koning, but Sam Draper. It's not only big for Essendon, but it's big for the competition. So Sam Draper is a huge part of just trade in general in 2025. It's set to really heat up if Draper was to seek a move away. We'll see what happens if that is the case, but all hell could break loose. But yeah, that is that. Those are the July trade rumours. It is really starting to get going. The rumour mill is well and truly milling, whatever a mill actually is. And I'm sure in August we're going to have even more to talk about. It's a really interesting off-season coming up for the Bombers. Remember, this time last year, we thought Stringer was set to stay. So anything could happen in the next few weeks and months. I'm going to be here to cover it all. So as always, like if you enjoyed, subscribe to keep up to date with trade and draft news. And as always, go Bombers.